Hello and welcome back to this next edition of the Global Growth Leaders podcast. My name is Simon Haigh and I'm staying up very late tonight to record. This is midnight here in Ireland because one of our guests is California time and on the other side of the world is Hong Kong time. So I drew the short straw, but it's going to be great conversation tonight. And I'm delighted to be joined once again by my co-host, Henry Wang. Henry, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Simon, and thank you for staying up. And tonight we're wonderful to have Eric from Hong Kong and Moshe from United States joining us for this really wonderful discussion on ethical leadership. Well, let's go into it. Overcoming COVID has really caused unprecedented human and economic costs globally. Unlike prior economic crises, which have been incurred by financial bubbles or global events, this is really a global health pandemic, resulting in serious negative impacts and supply chain disruptions. There are some countries which are pushing for fast recovery and return to business as usual with some quick fixes. However, there are also strong drive from various global leaders with longer-term visions to build back better with sustainable improvement with ethical leadership. A good example is the recent call by the United Nations World Economic Forum and the G20, B20 on building back better post-COVID with international collaborations.
Thanks, Henry. And so geopolitically, this crisis has, from a medical research perspective, at least underlined the huge value of global collaboration. We're witnessing the development and adaptation of life-saving technologies and massive research into treatments. And, there's been very positive news on the vaccine front just in the last 2 weeks. So I feel that the mood in the globe is lifting a little bit, which is great. And we're experiencing perhaps not seen before, at least since the AIDS crisis of the 1980s, sharing of massive amounts of scientific journals, genome sequencing data, and clinical trials, bringing together thousands of scientists, medics, companies, and researchers globally. So to facilitate greater collaboration and understanding, Henry and I are conducting a series of global podcasts with distinguished international thought leaders from both the East and the West. And these thought leaders will be discussing key topical issues, including healthcare, youth, innovation, climate change, media, leadership culture, and today, ethical leadership. And we hope that these open exchanges of views with international thought leaders from both the East and the West should help foster greater international understanding and cooperation. And just finally, we're delighted that all episodes will be featured on all leading podcast channels, YouTube, social media, and more. So very exciting. Over to you, Henry.
Thank you, Simon. That's wonderful. And we really have been overwhelmed by the global interest in our podcast. I think the theme of international collaboration and dialogue has really raised a common theme among many like-minded people like us around the world. So tonight, we're wonderful for us to welcome Eric and also Moshe to this groundbreaking podcast on ethical leadership, which is very, very important at this moment in time for recovery from COVID. So first to Eric. Well, it is wonderful. Thank you very much for being able to join us. And it is wonderful that you are a renowned surgeon in Hong Kong and also director of the Access Specialist Clinic in Hong Kong. I think our listeners globally will be very interested in your impressive career journey to date. Maybe you can share some of it with us, Eric.
First of all, I would like to thank Simon and Henry for your invitation today to join the podcast. And this is fresh to me. And thanks, Moshe, for taking part together. Let me introduce myself. I'm a graduate of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. I started my internship in Prince of Wales Hospital and in Tuen Mun Hospital. And my training was in Tuen Mun Hospital and Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I was inspired by one of my senior, Dr. I.Y. Kidd, when I attend his lesson to teach us about orthopedic. And I like the feeling when my patients get rid from pain and suffering and back to normal life in a good function, such as after knee replacements. I always like to see the happy faces. I attained my professional qualification as orthopedic surgeon in 2003. After that, I furthered my training in Basel, Helsinki, France, and Japan, mainly in spine surgery. After serving in public hospital for 12 years, I started to join the private sector in 2007. Then I started my own specialist center with my partner in 2009. Now in my specialty clinic, we have 3 specialists and 1 physiotherapist in our center. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Eric. That's really very impressive global career with global experiences around the world. Well, at the same time, I'd like to also congratulate you for being appointed as a very important district governor for Rotary District 3450, which includes over 100 Rotary Club and over 2,000 Rotarians in Hong Kong, Macau, Mongolia area. Maybe you can share with us some of the key activities and also your key leadership vision and aim for the Rotary clubs and districts.
Thank you, Henry. It's really my honor to be the district governor of this district 3450. My key ethical leadership vision is to unite all Rotarians. We have our common goal, that is to grow Rotary and to make our world a better place. We align with the mission statement of Rotary International. That is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. We all believe in the 4-way test and our core values. We ask questions when we think, say, or do. I think you all know the 4-way test. Yeah. Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerns? We always ask this question when we organize our events, and we treasure our friendship and fellowship. It's difficult to have a big group gathering during the pandemic as the social distancing measures. We stick to the rules and we have smaller groups gathering and we enjoy being together. And we emphasize integrity, diversity. We have training for leaderships. We continue our training by online, physical, or hybrid modes, depends on the situation in the pandemic. We adapt to the ever-changing environment. We continue our best to do services. We inspire our members to take care of the people in need. During the pandemic, there are more people suffering. We encourage our clubs to do services, to respond to the challenges. As people become homeless, lost their jobs, without enough food, etc. It's not easy to do services in the era of a pandemic because people may are afraid that they get infected. We change our way of doing services to avoid close contact and try our best to let people know that there is hope.
Wow, that's very, very impressive. And I know that that's really many charitable projects that Rotary is doing in Hong Kong and in the region. And some of these are also very much reported in the local press and is benefiting a lot of underprivileged people, the old age people, and that. And that's really wonderful, Eric, you are showing in the leadership of the Rotary Club and also to your Access Clinic. So in your leadership of the Rotary Club and the Access Clinic, what are the important elements of ethical leadership that play in your leadership of these important organizations, particularly during the pandemic?
Yeah. During the COVID, especially at the start, we put the priority of everyone's health in the first priority. We observe the social distancing measures. We ask all to be vigilant and be cautious. For example, we ask people to sign declaration form for events, avoid joining if they have history of travel, close contact with people having COVID, or if they have any symptoms. This also applies to our specialty clinic. And we rather see less cases than to risk the health of our colleagues and our patients. We know that if the cases increase a lot, it will overwhelm the medical system.
Thank you. Yes, that's important. And I think the health of everybody is really key. And I think as the pandemic goes around the world, we have to be very, very careful. So thank you very much, Eric. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Eric, and that was wonderful. So next up, we're very honored to have Moshe Engelberg, somebody we've spoken to a couple of times, Moshe, and we did a live stream a couple of weeks ago. So Moshe is founder and CEO of Research Works. He is adjunct professor at San Diego State University in California, author of a book called The Amare Wave, Uplifting Business by Putting Love to Work. And I'm actually in the middle of reading this book. I'm actually on page 105 as we speak. And it's a really comprehensive, it's a manual, and Moshe will talk about it more, but it's a manual around how love could and should be used in business. It's like a Bible. I think it's a phenomenal book. And you're also a consultant and keynote speaker. So I've praised you enough, Moshe. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Simon. Good to be back with you, and Henry and Eric to join you as well on this international collaborative podcast.
It's wonderful to have you. So first question for you is, give us an overview of your career and what you do today.
Sure. Well, I started my consulting firm close to 30 years ago. And the work that we have been doing is about helping good organizations figure out what are the unmet needs in the market, what do their customers really want, what are the right products and services to develop, how do you communicate it, the right value propositions, and so on. So a combination of research and strategy and communications. And in the course of doing that, the notion of being customer-centric came out loud and clear. And to put customers first means putting egos aside. So in terms of ethical leadership, the link is to not be driven by arrogance or greed, but to say, we're going to do what serves our customers best and know that will come back, karma comes back and serves us as well. And prior to that, I went to school. Frustration was a driving force. I got a couple master's degree. I got my doctorate in communication at Stanford, and then started my consulting practice while teaching on the side in schools of public health, schools of business, executive education, and so on. And all along, the common thread was there's a better way to do this. And that led me to the realization that what's missing in business is love. So I'll stop there, but that's kind of in a nutshell.
Thanks. That's wonderful. I'm glad you did, because my next question then is, to what extent would you say ethics and even love belong in business? And I know you can talk for a long time about this because I'm reading the book, but to what extent would you say ethics and love belong in business?
Totally, 110%. The way I define love is energy that uplifts and connects. So who wouldn't want to give their business to companies where they feel uplifted and sense of connection? And love belongs in business. Everyone would say, yeah, I love that sports team or that restaurant. So we're familiar with the idea, even if when we step back and think about love and business as odd partners, they go together. Business exists to make people's lives better. That is an act of love. And the ethics come in as simply a way of being. I think leadership and ethical leadership is almost saying the same thing. But what happens is our society rewards us sometimes, like in the recession of 2008, 2010, rewards us for setting our ethics aside and just focusing on making money. And so on one hand, we say, be ethical. On the other hand, we say, we'll reward you if you hyper-focus on money, and it's okay, greed is good. That was an axiom a decade ago or so. So we and as human beings, we have the capacity to have our values and ethics and to live otherwise. So the challenge for leaders is to say, my thoughts and words and actions must match. I'm committed to that because that's what I believe life is about and how to function well in this society.
Wow, it's deep stuff. And you actually gave an example, I won't go into too much detail, of an amazing company, a shoe company that was, was giving away, selling shoes, but also giving them away. And you gave a great explanation that while this might seem crazy to certain people, it was actually a business model that made them very, they did very well out of it because it attracted the right people and it attracted the right karma. And that was profound. And so how would you see the East, Moshe, how would you see the East and the West working better to collaborate in helping business thinkers espouse increased ethical practice in business? How do you think the West and the East could learn from each other or could collaborate better?
Well, I think the West is hyper-focused on productivity, and the East, at least traditionally, had more respect for wisdom traditions. So, for example, one book on a lot of executives' bookshelves is The Art of War. I think that should be replaced by another book, a Chinese book that's over 2,000 years old called the Bhagavad Gita, which also takes place on a battlefield, but sort of the battlefield of the mind, and speaks to the ideas of not being attached to the outcomes, of striving for them, but being the same in success and defeat. So we can tap into the rich wisdom traditions, many originated in the East, and let them infuse our philosophy in business.
Wow, that's deep. And Henry, that was a bit of a history lesson for both of us. That was wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Moshe.
And I think that's wonderful that Moshe is quoting the Chinese literatures. And certainly I would have to look up these books and brush up on my Chinese history and literature, because I do agree that we can learn a lot from history. Mm-hmm. And I think, thank you, Moshe, for your interesting answer. Now coming to Eric, I think it is very, very looking ahead. What are your 2 to 3 priorities for leadership, ethical leadership and changes, and in your leadership of the Ethics Clinic and also of Rotary, and in your many, many contributions to local communities, which really needs these services and contributions? Eric, maybe you can share with us.
Thank you. First of all, I really enjoy the talk by Moshe. It's very nice. It really it's the same thinking with the Rotary thinking. I think we treasure love and we treasure how our business should perform instead of just making more money. We emphasize of ethics is very important. Yeah, that's what's the thinking of Rotary too. And my top priority is to communicate, just like today, among leaders across the globe. And we should work out the direction towards peace building and promote international understanding. Is very important. And the second one I would like to do is to support the environment. As we can see the blue sky now, because there are less plane and less pollution. And the third one is we should nurture our new generations and young leaders. It's very important, especially in Hong Kong after the social unrest last year. Yeah, that are my priority.
Wow.
That's very, very important priorities, Eric, and we really look forward to supporting you and working with you on these very important priorities.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Eric. So back to you, Moshe. What's in a similar vein? What do you think should be the top 2 or 3 priorities for business globally to ensure ethical leadership is placed at the heart of growth?
Well, I appreciate, Eric, what you said and the focus on young leaders coming up, particularly. I think that's critical as our world is changing quite a bit politically, economically, and so on. And crisis, as we know, creates opportunity, both danger and opportunity. And we can take advantage of the opportunity and put ethics at the center, but make it so it's just the way it is. We don't have to call it out and say, look at that ethical leader. That becomes the new necessity in business. So I think of the ABCs I have in my book as a framework: authenticity, belonging, and collaboration. So authenticity is, I think, a really key priority, is being honest, being straightforward. Here's who I am as a leader. Here's what my company's about. And globally have that shared sense of belonging. We are in this together. And if the pandemic has taught us nothing else, it's that we are global citizens, and what happens in one corner of the world and in a town in China can dramatically affect the whole world. It happened with a virus that has some negative health effects. It can happen on the upside too, with some beautiful innovation and new ideas, and hopefully amare. So the idea of showing up authentically, the sense of belonging, we are in this together as global business leaders, and collaboration, where we're, like you said at the outset, Simon, there's an unprecedented sharing of data and health information and journals opening up and so on. So that kind of collaboration, and ironically, it speaks to greater growth and making more money. So when the goal is not making money and ethics are at the heart of it, companies do better, they make more money.
That was wonderful. And, you know, I don't want to jinx it, but I do have a sense that there are some shoots of positivity and hope and love emerging through the amazing work around vaccine collaboration and all the great work that the scientists and medical people are doing. And the other thing then is, you know, I think there's a huge opportunity. I call it globalization Mark II. You know, I'm giving a speech at a major conference in London on Thursday and this week. And, you know, I think there's a huge opportunity for the world to do exactly what we're doing, you know, responsible communication. We're not talking about politics or religion or all these things. We're talking about how we as humans can collaborate for the betterment of humankind. And we can do this online. And I think that can only accelerate positivity, I think. So thanks for that. That was wonderful, Moshe. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Simon and Moshe. I really agree with you both that international collaboration and going ahead together on this boat that we are on together on this earth, you know, it's like being in the same boat. And we got to learn to live with each other and collaborate and go ahead. So on this tone, on international collaboration, Eric, coming to you, maybe you can share with us. So how do you think, how can various ethical leadership organizations like Rotary, Access, which you are leading, can collaborate more in the world going ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Henry. I do agree with Simon and Moshe about the thinking, and we should understand the culture of each other's and be respect and try to communicate more using, like today, online method. And there are Rotary Clubs in over 200 countries in the world. We could organize communication channels for our leaders to start the dialogue. And I think the podcast like today is really good. It will be a good example for us to do the same in the future. And thanks again, Simon and Henry and Moshe. If we talk more, we understand more about each other, and there will not be any conflict, yeah, in the future.
No, I agree totally with you, Eric. I think that's a very good point. And I think one really good example that I recently heard about, under your leadership and others in Rotary here, the Rotary clubs in Hong Kong are working to supply face masks to the Rotary club in Italy during the COVID, particularly during the new wave. I think that's a really good example of international collaboration. So thank you very much.
It was during, sorry, Henry, it was during the most severe condition in Hong Kong, when we has not enough face mask. My classmate, another district governor in Mexico, sent 10,000 of face masks to us. Yeah, and now we are going to give back. Yeah, and as you have mentioned, also we give back to Italy and also some of the other countries. And that would be a very good collaboration internationally. Thanks for reminding me.
No, thank you for mentioning it. I think that's wonderful examples of international collaboration. Thank you.
No, it's wonderful. And I often say, I've said it on a few of these, that 99.99% of humankind around the world wants to do the same thing. We want to love and be loved. I always say that in every culture, right? And I think conflict has arisen because we don't communicate. We don't communicate. We have that common link. The common link is love. And yet I think we forget that. We dress it up in complexities of life and barriers and politics and all sorts of things. So Moshe, back over to you for the final question. How do you think the West could learn from the East, and maybe vice versa, in terms of using a heart, love-centric approach to business? How do you think they can learn from each other?
Well, I think it's the sharing of practices and philosophies. So for example, the West has imported a lot of practices like meditation and mindfulness, primarily from the East. It's westernized, and now it's going back as some Eastern countries are wanting to emulate the West. So there's a trading of practices and philosophies that I think is very powerful. But what really makes it work, as this pandemic shows, is the power of a shared goal. Is when we share a goal, like the collaboration that's happening in response to the need for a virus, when we share a goal, it transcends other differences. And it says, this is more important, we're going to set these differences aside. If we can hold on to that and let our more trivial or petty concerns not overtake us, then that lends itself to incredible global collaboration. And what it means for leaders is to train ourselves to manage our egos and manage our desire for fame and fortune and so on, and recognize we can have all that and have our wealth serve a greater good, and collaboration makes that even better.
Wow, that's extremely powerful, and I completely agree. And no, I'm going to bed late here tonight, but I'm feeling really uplifted by this conversation. It's wonderful. Thank you both.
Thank you, Simon. I agree with you, and I think it's been really worthwhile. I'd like to thank Eric and Moshe for this really groundbreaking podcast, together with some really insightful comments about international collaboration and how we can all work together. And I think that's really, really important as we are going through the lowest part, hopefully, of COVID, and then we hopefully are coming out of it with the vaccines and things like that. And I think I agree with a lot of world leaders are now saying this is really a warning of how things will go in future if we don't collaborate more and work together on some major global issues like climate change, global warming, and things like this. So really thank you to you both. And I think they'll be really, really interesting for our global viewers. I hope they would have enjoyed it as much as I have and Simon have talking with you both. I think they will really have to listen to you many times to learn how important love and international collaboration is.
No,
Thank you to you.
Thank
both.
you. Thank you.
it's wonderful. Yeah, and I just like to repeat, and it's very fitting that we're having this conversation after the positive news of the last couple of weeks. I think it's fate that we're having this conversation now rather than a month ago. And so, yeah, so this is a groundbreaking podcast series, and we really hope that our listeners and our viewers get a chance to really drill in and listen to the words of wisdom from our thought leaders, and today from Eric and Moshe, and listen out for further details of other exciting announcements, hopefully next year, Henry, as well. So thank you both. It was wonderful, Moshe. Thank you, Eric, as well. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.